got a different new phone. That's why if the lighting is off, I'm kind of playing around a little bit. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March, and this is my Bookish week for Saturday, May 6th. Yes. And let's see, this is May, so I have been reading for Mental Health May, a readathon that I am co-hosting with my friend Marilyn Maya Mendoza, and I will have her channel linked down below. I'm not putting a disclaimer in front of the video because I don't want to scare anybody off, but I will be talking about a few books with mental health themes and mental illness. I will be talking about books that include depression and self-harm. So if you're sensitive to those topics, there are going to be some sentences, conversations, words that come up in the description of these books. So I just wanted you to be aware of that in advance. So let me tell you what I read last week. So I already did a review of the book that I listened to, and it is My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward by Mark Lukács. And this is his memoir of his wife Julia's mental illness that did not develop for her until they were married and she was in her mid-20s. So I did a video review about that book, and there were a few areas that didn't work for me, but I still thought it was a good book. And I had included, maybe I'll include some more links. No, go back to the video. I'll include the link for the previous review video. And in that description box, there are links to some other videos on YouTube to watch. Mark Lukács has a TED Talk, and the two of them as a couple have been interviewed on a couple of different channels. So those links are in the review video that I will link down below. What else did I read? Okay, here's the book that I will be talking about some difficult mental illness topics. I read this book, and this was a reread for me. I read this many, many, many years ago. But this is Darkness Visible, a memoir of madness by William Styron. And William Styron is the author of Sophie's Choice, among other things. But I have to say, this is the best memoir on depression I have ever read. And this is tiny. This book is, I think I read it over one day, but I had read 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. It's very easy to read in a day, as long as you can stick with it through some hard topics. This is William Styron's personal account of his major depression. And it struck him, I believe, in his 50s and 60s. He wrote this in 1990, I believe. And so he had already published several books. Yeah, 1990. He had already published several novels, several books. He was a very well-known writer, famous. And he went through a major depression to the point where he was consulting with psychiatrists and doctors. He was given medications, antidepressants, and sleep medicines. He ended up being hospitalized for 5 weeks, I believe, 5 or 6 weeks. And this is his account of that period. And it's also his thoughts on depression as an illness, as a clinical illness. The things that he writes in here are profound. And what he does well, what he does better than well, what he does superbly is discuss how depression is a disease. It's an illness. It's not a fault of somebody. It's not a mistake. It's not something that needs to be hidden away. It's an actual physical illness, just like diabetes or heart disease or some other chronic illness that needs to be managed. Depression is the same thing. And what he does also with this very short memoir is he gives depression exposure. He shines the light on it. And that's exactly why Marilyn and I are doing this readathon to begin with. We want to give it exposure, give mental illness and mental health topics exposure. Open the doors, shine the light on them, remove the shame of speaking about it, and being able to talk about it out loud. This is, you know, people always say you don't talk about politics or religion in polite conversation. Well, often you also don't talk about mental illness, and that's why, as a society, where we are is because people find it embarrassing, or they don't want to admit to being treated for a mental illness. They don't want to admit to being in therapy or taking medication. I, for one, have had no shame in admitting any of that, as you all know already. So this book is so articulate and so succinct as to what he felt and what he went through. He talks about several famous authors and writers and artists who took their own lives. He was suicidal at one point. He did not die that way. He actually died in his 80s from pneumonia or an illness. So he definitely overcame depression, but it was something he managed for the rest of his life. He never pushed it under the rug. He never ignored it. He knew it was something to be managed. And I think that's probably the most functional message from this very short book, is depression is managed. You may not ever cure it, and you may not ever be rid of it, but it is manageable with support, whether it's medical support, emotional support, physical resources, whatever it is, whether it's medicine or hospitalization or lifelong therapy. It doesn't matter if you can manage it. And there's so many times in this book he talks about that, the tools that people can have to manage clinical depression, and the ways that other people can support a person who is depressed. It's just a profound book, but I highlighted, I actually read this on my Kindle, and I highlighted like 70 or 80 passages in this tiny little book. That's how good it is. And again, it is a difficult topic, and that's why this is a very digestible memoir, because it is so short. But it's spectacular, and I highly recommend anybody to read it. Styron's writing is beautiful, and his memoir is no exception. I absolutely love his writing. So that's a book I will keep forever. And as I'm filming this, I'm not quite done with this book, but I will be done by the time this video is posted. It is The Strong Black Woman by Marita Golden. This is an excellent book about Black women's health, physical and mental. And what captured me is how clearly she is describing the status of health and health care of Black women. One of the statistics she gave early in the book is that a Black woman with a PhD is more likely to die in childbirth than is a white woman with less than a high school diploma. And I thought, I was just in shock by that statistic. And I remember reading in the news when Serena Williams was pregnant and gave birth to her daughter. She almost died during childbirth, but the doctors didn't take her seriously. She had to demand that they check the things that she felt were wrong, and she had to demand for the health care that she deserved and she needed. And I found that just enraging, that here I am, a nobody, reading this in the news and wondering, if this world-famous international sports figure can't get the health care that she deserves, where's the hope for a regular person? And the statistics alone are shocking, but imagine the reality of Black women and the opportunity for health care in this country. It's a travesty. She also talks about mental health care, and what she discusses is that many Black women are under the template of a strong Black woman. Now, Golden also discusses mental health care for Black women, and not even just Black women, but Black men as well. There's kind of a message in the Black community that you don't talk about if you're depressed. You don't talk about your mental health, because you need to just buck up and move on. And a lot of Black communities are church-based, so a lot of Christians talk about the power of prayer and the power of God to heal, when they should be more open about people's actual emotions and their emotional health, which would lead into conversations about mental health and whether there is a need for further discussion and further medical exploration. So I thought she provided such clarity for those discussion points, and she talked very clearly about her own physical health, her own mental health. And I thought, this is a book that's so interesting, and it so provides me so much clarity, provides me so much information. And she also discusses, not even relating to healthcare, but the status of Black women in living in a strong way, because they've been raised to be strong, because they've been told you have to be better than anybody else you're up against for any type of position in life, whether it's academic or job related or whatever it is. You have to be the best. And so many Black women are raised with those messages. You can't show your weaknesses. You can't show your vulnerabilities. You can't admit when you're scared or when you feel weak or when you need a break. You can't talk about that. Be strong all the time. And she talks about it, and she also talks about how she had to decondition herself to take time to do the things that would be beneficial to her own mental health. And I thought that was very profound. I used that word already in this conversation, but I think it's true for this book specifically. And I just look forward to reading more and learning more from this book. Because I will be finished by the time the video posts. So those are the 3 books that I finished last week. I've got, what else am I reading? I'm going to finish The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell this weekend, because my book group is coming up on Friday. And what else am I reading? Oh my gosh, I'm listening to Jennifer Lewis's memoir, The Mother of Black Hollywood. I love her. And check out this memoir, but check it out on audio. Her voice is simply fantastic. So if you don't know who she is, she has been around for many years. She started off on Broadway. She became a Hollywood star. She was Angela Bassett's mother in What's Love Got to Do with This, Tina Turner's mother. And she was also the mother on the TV show Blackish. So I am absolutely loving the audiobook. I can't wait to get back to it. And yeah, so by the time Monday rolls around, I'm sure I will have another 1 or 2 books that I'm currently reading. I don't know what they're going to be yet. I don't know. And so a little plug here, my next video on Wednesday is going to be a book haul. So if you're interested in that, come back on Wednesday to see it. And write me a comment down below. Any questions, any comments about the books I talked about, anything else you'd like to know. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.